Alright, so continuing with the third render engine, which is going to be Arnold. So the Arnold setup is fairly simple. Just install it, and usually it adds the stuff in the environment file on its own. I haven't figured out how to do the package and the JSON stuff, but someone has sent me like the JSON of it, so I'm going to figure it out, and then by the time I upload this video, I'll attach the JSON with it. The only thing that I have been told is, okay, the only thing with Arnold is that sometimes it conflicts with other render engines. So what you need to do is you want to make sure that the Arnold JSON uploads or loads up last. So you can name it in a way that, it is like started with X or something, call it like X Arnold, so that it loads, because this loads alphabetically. Okay, so if it loads before V-Ray or something, then it causes issues with V-Ray. So just make sure that you name it in a way that alphabetically it loads up last. Okay, but yeah, I'll attach the Arnold JSON, before I upload the video. Okay, so to get started, we're doing the same stuff. Okay, so we'll start off with the render setup and then look at lights and materials and attributes. Okay, the only big difference between Arnold and the other render engines is that it doesn't support packed primitives. Okay, so instancing has to be done in the old-fashioned way, which is using the instance node. So I'll just set that up beforehand. Okay, so I'm just going to I have set it up over here. Okay, which is like I have this grid which has I've scattered some points on it, and I gave it some color, and then I just picked up the model over there. Okay, and then what I'll do is I want to give it a little bit of variation, so I'll just adjust this. Yeah, there you go. Okay, and it also has some color. So I'm setting up instancing in the old-fashioned way. The only thing you need to know is keep point instancing to fast point instancing, because that's what Arnold supports. It doesn't support full point instancing. Okay, but I'll hide this for now. It's not needed at the moment. Okay, now for rendering, what I'll do is I'm going to just split this left and right, and I'll set this to render view. Okay, and then let's create a render engine. So robnet, type in Arnold. And there's also something new called the Arnold image builder, which gives you a little bit of color correction stuff. So what you can do is we'll take this and then come down here. Hold on, let me just find it. Yeah, in the outputs you'll find something called imager, and you can just drag and drop this in there. And then in here you can create, if you come to imager, you'll see you have different things. So we can add a light mixer. I haven't used the light mixer as yet. I'll figure it out and I'll do another video on it. But you can do tone map, you can do white balance. So yeah, so let's just do it. Let's add a color correct. Okay, and it chains up in a string. So let's also take yeah, you can also add a denoiser if you want to, but let's add tone map, or let's add white balance. I think let's do that. Okay, so we have these three just connected in there. So that's done, and then we'll take a material network, and I'll build, just type in Arnold and you'll get Arnold material builder, and take a standard surface and just plug it into surface, and we'll call this as base, and I'll call this as model. Okay, and then assign it. So we'll start off with a basic Arnold light, and I'm going to set this here, and we'll change it to quad. Okay, and then, okay, and let's hit render. Yeah, so there you go. It's pretty, this part is pretty straightforward. The interaction is not very fast like the IPR. It tends to sort of get stuck sometimes. But yeah, for material editing and everything, it's fine. When it comes to movement, it gets a little jerky sometimes. Okay, settings wise, it's pretty simple. You have you have three options. You can have simple color, texture, or shader. Okay, you can define intensity of the light. Okay, you can do exposure. You have samples over here, so you can have light samples and volume samples. You can also do roundness, which I don't know what that is doing. Okay, you can define the spread, and we can also define the size of it. And then over here you have contribution. So if you don't want it visible in the camera, you can make that 0. And then you have your diffuse contribution, you have specular contribution. Okay, so you have all of your basic options. Okay, you can also take a texture, but the thing with Arnold is it needs to convert all textures into like a TX format, which is its own custom format. There is a way to sort of you get like a batch conversion process, but it can also do an auto convert. Okay, so the way it works is like change this to texture, and then I'll pick up let's say D, and then when you hit render, it will take this EXR and convert it to a TX file. Okay, so hit render over here, and it'll take a little bit of time because it's doing a conversion in the background. And there you go. Okay, so if I kind of spin it around, you should see the texture. So if I pick up anything else, make sure that you stop it and then you pick it up. Okay, so let me just do show images. I want to pick up this one. Okay, and then hit render again. So it always takes a little bit of time to do conversion. And if we like if I change this, I'll delete this and I'll do like star.star, you will see the TX file. See, there you go. So it's made like TX files for you. So if you have TX files, just directly pick a TX file. Don't pick up the EXR. Okay, so it will be much faster. Okay, let me just increase the light intensity a little bit. Yeah, so if you're getting a lot of grain, like I'll just do a snapshot of this, you can increase the samples. Okay, so if I get the samples up to 4, then it'll give a better result. Yeah, it's not very visible, but I don't know if you can see it. But yeah, it kind of like down there, you can see the samples, or the grain getting better. Anyways, you can sort of modify the samples to make it better. Okay, so this is as far as, the basic light is concerned. Let me just, what I'll do is, I just want to kind of move it a little further. Yeah, the Houdini navigation is kind of weird. Yeah, the other thing is if it finds aces, it automatically sort of, takes care of everything for you. So you don't need to worry about aces. Again, I'm pretty new to aces, so I'm still kind of figuring it out. But yeah, I mean, Arnold and V-Ray are kind of like the easiest to work with when it comes to aces. You don't need to, it sort of does most of it for you. Okay, so now let's add in a dome light. Okay, so let's take another Arnold light, and I can set it to sky dome. We'll set it to texture, and I do have my basic one. I've already converted it to a TX, so I just have that. And let me hit render. Yeah, and let's get rid of the light here. So I'll take the contribution to 0. Yeah. Now, as I said, the viewport interaction is kind of okay. If I start to move this around, it doesn't if you see the 3D light video, it moves pretty smoothly. Okay, this is not as smooth. Okay, it's a little, herky jerky. Okay, okay. So, yeah, this is a little sort of jerky when it moves around. And also it doesn't support, Arnold doesn't support SOP level changes. Okay, so what we saw with the 3D light video, if I was changing the random value in the color, it was updating on its own. Arnold doesn't do that. Okay, you have to stop it and restart. Okay, so some things it's interactive, and then some things it's not. Okay, so there's nothing much to do with with this light, so it's fine. I'm just rotating it so I can get light from a different angle. Okay, now let's get to the material stuff. Okay, because the material stuff is pretty nice with Arnold. Okay, I'm going to lower the intensity of the environment light, and we'll just increase the, let me do one thing. I'm going to get rid of this. I'll bring it back to single color. and just make it brighter. Okay, I think this is good. Okay, so yeah, let's do one thing. I'm going to lower the diffuse contribution and keep the specular contribution. Okay, so now let's come into materials, and the first thing I want to do is I want to take the base and make it a little darker and get rid of the specular on the base. Okay, now Arnold material is pretty huge, but it's sort of like the gold standard when it comes to having like a single uber material, because it does everything and it does everything well. Okay, so if you are really into like shader stuff, I think Arnold is pretty much the best option you can have, because it looks great and it's pretty simple to work with. Okay, so what you have is you have your basic base and the diffuse base and the diffuse color. So that's pretty straightforward. Okay, you have diffuse roughness. Okay, let me get rid of the specular for a second, but yeah, there you go. So this is like standard diffuse and this is roughness. You can do metalness, which is metalness, and give it some roughness if you want. Okay, you can give it anisotropy, so we can do a little bit of rotation on that. Hold on. Yeah, there you go. Okay, let me make it slightly more chrome, or not chrome actually. Okay, but yeah, there you go. See, so you can rotate a little bit and get like a different result. Like, this is the one thing I like about Arnold, because it's really easy to get good looking results with it. Okay, let's get rid of metalness. Let's bring back specular. Okay, and then we can do glass. So I'll get rid of the diffuse and we can increase transmission. So you have glass. You can define a color for it. And what you can also do is you can define depth. So as you increase the depth, it becomes lighter, and the lower the depth is, it will become darker. See, let me just bring back the diffuse contribution here. Okay, it won't matter, but yeah. Okay, and then of course you can give it roughness, so the whole thing looks a little rough. I'll just let this render through, because glass takes a little bit of time to, we'll do a snapshot. Okay, now here comes the more like you can do some scattering with this, which is useful if you're doing like I don't know, like ketchup or something. So you can give it some or like jade, that's nice for that also. But let's see if we can give it some other color. There you go. And you can give it like some scatter and isotropy. So negative makes it sort of brighter, and then this positive makes it darker. We'll add a little more roughness to it. But yeah, there you go. So this is like standard glass, and then this is with scattering. Yeah, so pretty cool stuff. Okay, and then like I'll do another snapshot. Let's get rid of the scattering. Let's make this white. We can also add dispersion. So you can add dispersion from here. There you go. So which is useful if you're doing like diamonds or something like that. It will make the rendering a little slower, so you should just remember that. You can also do something called as extra roughness. See, there you go. You can now see like the chromatic aberration happening on the the refractions over there. Like, this is without dispersion, so you can you can see the difference. Yeah, see, so there you go. So this is with dispersion and without dispersion. Okay. And then it also has this option for adding extra roughness, which is sort of like it adds like micro scratches. It looks pretty cool. See, there you go. So yeah, so this is without extra roughness, this is with extra roughness. Okay, so this is transmission. And then you can add subsurface scattering, which is probably like the best in the business. Okay, like if I'm not wrong, they were the first ones to introduce random walk, which is now sort of like the gold standard for subsurface scattering. Okay, but it's pretty straightforward. Like we can just, I'm going to lower the IOR. Yeah, and I can just, increase the subsurface value, and let's make it, let's make it slightly reddish. Okay, let's go here. Okay, and then you can just take the radius and make it lower. And there you go. That's pretty much it. Yeah, like it's Literally that simple. Okay, if you want it cleaner, since we are doing renders here, you can come into your robnet, and it's pretty straightforward, right? Like, so what you can do is you have ray depth, which is your depth for everything, and you have sampling. So all you can do is, like, if you want more samples for subsurface scatter, I can just increase this, right? So let's make it, I don't know, 8 samples and let it render through now. It'll slow down, but it'll give you a better result. Yeah, there you go. See, so this is with 2 samples, this is with 8 samples. Okay. So yeah, pretty straightforward. It's not complicated. Like, if you switch over to GPU, then things change a little bit, but maybe I'll cover the GPU stuff in the next lesson. Okay, or let's see, like, if at the end of this I want to cover a little bit of GPU, I'll cover the GPU rendering stuff. Okay, yeah, let's come back to the material. You have 3 different types of subsurface scatter. So you have random walk, and then you have random walk version 2. Okay, let me just hit render. Random walk version 2 it sort of just picks up a little more detail. Yeah, it's also brighter, but yeah, so this is version 2 and that's version 1. Yeah, if you look at the bottom areas near the intersections, you can see like it picks up a little more, detail. But yeah, like you can try it out and see what the difference is. And the third one you get is something called as diffusion, which is the old method. It's still nice, but not as nice as random walk. Anyway, so that's as far as subsurface scattering is concerned. Okay, and then what else is there? So let me just try and figure out what else we can go through. Okay, so then you have coat, so you can add like a coat layer on top of this. Again, it sort of mixes with the existing color. Okay, so you can tell it to like affect color, so it sort of mixes with the previous color or the underneath color. Like, this is without affect color and this is sort of with. And then you can add like an additional level of reflection on top of it, and you can, let's make that rough. Let's make this one, more shiny. And you can also have it affect the roughness of the underneath layer. Okay, let's make it metallic so we can look at the thin film. Yeah, so there you go. So it's pretty straightforward here. Okay. Like, as you add it, it sort of starts to change color. Okay, so that's thin film. Okay, nothing much to do over there. Okay, then you get something nice called a sheen, which is it sort of like adds like an edge color. It's useful for doing velvet and stuff like that. Okay, so we can just add some sheen to this and increase the value. See, there you go. So you have like an edge color, and the roughness decides like how much it sort of blends in through the edges. So at 0, it's barely there. Okay, or like 0.75, and then this is almost towards 1. Okay, and then lastly you can just add emission, which is okay, like it's useful sometimes, but right now it doesn't matter. Okay, let me just change the color of this to something. Okay, that's too bright. Oh, that's too saturated actually. Okay, so let's see if that image builder stuff is working, because we added that. Okay, so what you can do is once you've added the image builder, if you come in here and make changes, so you'll see the whole thing adjust. So you can adjust contrast, you can adjust gamma, and you also have like individual controls. You can adjust like shadow saturation, shadow contrast. It's not really doing too much. There you go. See, now it's affecting it. Or like the mid-tone. So you can sort of control each one separately. And then you can also do white balance. So let's try this. Okay, this isn't bad. You can do temperature, so we can do temperature. Or you can do custom, which means you can just pick a color. Yeah, so it's nice. You can do some stuff with this. In another lesson, I'll go through the rest of these because there's like denoisers and stuff in there as well, but we'll do those and there's like a light mixer. So we'll do those in another lesson. Okay, so this is done. Okay, now let's take a look at the other stuff. So we'll start with attributes. So what I'm going to do is I'll come in here and like the previous lessons, I'll add a curvature to this. And let's just switch this to normal. Okay. So again, like range scale and adjust this. And let's make this 30. And I'll come into material network. I'll create a new material. We'll call it attribute. I'll just assign it to this. And we'll come into the model. I'll just turn off this thing, visualize this color. Okay, so the way it works is pretty simple. Type in user and you'll find user data float. So we can take the float data and we'll type in concavity, and we also want convexity. And then we want to use this to color our material. Let me just hit render. So what you can do is type in ramp and you'll get two types. You'll get ramp RGB and ramp float. Okay, so for the color, we'll pick up ramp RGB. Just plug this into input and that goes to base color. And if it doesn't show up, either I've made a spelling mistake or hold on, we might need to add in the Arnold properties. Okay, so just select the object and add Arnold properties. And it should set up the attributes. Is my spelling correct? Yeah, the spelling seems to be correct. Okay, let's hit render again. See if that works. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, so make sure you add the Arnold properties. And we can try the other one as well. Yeah, so both of them are working. So what I can do is I can add them together. So let's just type in tab and we'll take add. So you'll get float add. And then I can just, add these two together. And then I'll just set this up. Okay, and then I want like a ramp float. This will be for controlling the metalness, so which is there. Yeah, there you go. Okay, except I want a little bit sharper, so like this is metal and then that is flat. Yeah, there you go. That's better. Okay. And then let's do Control C, Control V. This will be for roughness. This is specular roughness. Yeah, but we need to flip it. So just click that and it will flip it. There you go. Okay. So yeah, pretty straightforward. Okay, let's create one more material for, just getting in like the base color. So I'll take another, I'll say user data RGB, and this will be CD, and plug that to base color. So now let's take a look at instancing. So let's keep this on and I'll just zoom out. Okay, let's take the model and we'll assign base 1. And if I hit render, it should pretty much just work. Like it doesn't have, the CD value on it, which is why it's causing an issue. But there's color here, so it's picking it up. Yeah, if I come in here and try to make changes, that won't update on its own. Like if I take this and I make changes, yeah, see, it doesn't update. Okay. Like the way 3D Elite was updating, this doesn't. So you have to like hit re-render and then it'll update. But yeah, instancing has to be done the old fashioned way. It doesn't support that. Okay, and lastly, we have particles. So for particles, I'll first just add in the Arnold object properties because you get more options. Okay, so if you come into shapes and you'll find points. So another thing I want to do is like first we'll just give it the same material. So it's base 1 and I want to get rid of some of the attributes here because there are too many of them. It picks up attributes from, because I use like scatter and align, it picks up attributes from the base geometry and I don't want most of those. So I can get rid of the normals and stuff. So it has normals and it has, some of the other stuff. so I can get rid of those. Okay, yeah, if I've done everything right, it should just render directly. So I can hit render, and the material already has CD applied to it, so it should work. There you go, it works. And you have a bunch of options in this. So you can render as spheres, or you can render as disks. And let me just try something. I'm going to stop this. Let's say if we keep the normals and the orient, and if I hit render, yeah, it doesn't do anything. Okay, I was thinking the disk might orient themselves, but they don't. Maybe it needs like velocity or something. Okay, and then you also have like an option called quad. So you have like 3 different options, which are pretty nice. But yeah, let's keep it to sphere, which is the standard. So yeah, so that's pretty much it. So this is the basics of Arnold. Okay, so the material settings and the light settings and how to render instances and attributes and particles and the general stuff that you'll need. I will do a separate lesson for rendering curves and stuff, and another one for volumes, because those are like more specialized things, so we'll do that later. Okay, and I'll also do something for the materials, because that's like the huge area. But yeah, let me first go through the intro videos and then I'll do the rest. Okay, so the next one is then Octane, and I did say I'll do mantra, but I'm not sure. Let's see if I get to that, and if I'm still feeling enthusiastic, I'll cover mantra. But yeah, that's as far as Arnold is concerned.